Thanks to President Biden's leadership coming out of the pandemic and historic investments in America, the United States is leading the world's economic growth, beating our peers. As the Washington Post put it this weekend, the surprisingly strong U.S. economy is outperforming all of its major trading partners and quashing fears of a recession. The American people are benefiting. U.S. wages after inflation grew 2.8% over the last 4 years, outpacing all other G7 countries. Bloomberg and CNN came to similar conclusions when comparing the U.S. economy to China. The U.S. has pulled further ahead of China in the race for world's biggest economy. As Bloomberg put it, CNN wrote, the U.S. economy is growing faster than Wall Street. Expected markets are soaring and inflation is approaching the Federal Reserve's 2% target. It appears that a soft landing, where price rises are tamed and the economy manages to avoid recession, is possible. Meanwhile, China's economy appears to be in distress. This economic success is no accident, as thanks to the leadership and investments made by President Biden, Vice President Harris, and congressional Democrats. The surprisingly strong U.S. economy is outperforming all of its major trading partners. Since 2020, the United States has powered through a once-in-a-century pandemic, the highest inflation in 40 years, and fallout from 2 foreign wars. Now, after posting faster annual growth last year than in 2022, the U.S. economy is quashing fears of a recession while offering lessons for future crisis fighting. The U.S. has really come out of this into a place of strength and is moving forward like COVID never happened, said Claudia Sahm, a former Federal Reserve economist who now runs an eponymous consulting firm. We earned this, it wasn't just a fluke. On Friday, President Biden hailed fresh government data showing that annual inflation over the second half of 2023 fell back to the Federal Reserve's 2% target, coupled with Thursday's news that the economy grew by 3.1% over the past 12 months. The Commerce Department report showed that the United States appears to have achieved an economic soft landing. Consumer spending is driving the economy. Real consumption rose by 0.5% in December, its fastest pace since last January. Pending home sales jumped too. Following the flurry of good news, J.P. Morgan Chase economists said they raised their first quarter growth forecast. IBM, Visa, and General Electric last week each reported earnings that topped analysts' expectations, another sign of the economy's continued health. The $28 trillion U.S. economy weathered multiple shocks over the past year and returned to the growth path it was on before the pandemic. The size of the economy, adjusted for inflation, regained its pre-pandemic peak in early 2021. Through the end of September, it was more than 7% larger than before the pandemic. That was more than twice Japan's gain and far better than Germany's anemic 0.3% increase, according to British Parliament data. For most Americans, the growth paid off in the form of higher wages. Over the 4 years through September, the most recent comparison available, U.S. wages after inflation grew 2.8%. Most other countries in the group of 7 industrial democracies saw a decline, according to Treasury Department data. Italian wages sank by more than 9% over that period, while German workers earned 7.2% less than they had before the pandemic. The U.S. has seen a particularly strong GDP recovery, and inflation has cooled sooner and more quickly than in other large, advanced economies. And the increase in real wages is unique to our country's recovery, Treasury Secretary Janet L. Yellen said in a Chicago speech last week.